Ready. I'm going to click go live. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it'll take a few seconds and then we'll be good to go. So I believe we are live. Welcome everyone to this very special episode of the Stop Yulin podcast. With me today is Jill Stewart of China Rescue Dogs, the founder of China Rescue Dogs. And next to me is Brandy Jill, Director of Operations at China Rescue Dogs. And we are well accompanied today. We have beautiful dogs with us. Can you tell us, Jill, who is with you right now on your lap?
This is Millie. She is a Chinese rural dog. I adopted her from Shanghai Animal Rescue. She is my daughter's dog. She actually picked her out in the shelter, and I was her flight volunteer prior to the pandemic.
Wow. And you say it's your daughter's dog, and you have next to you, you have Tess,
yeah,
who was rescued a while ago, I think. Yeah.
So look at Tessie. She's missing an eye from being on the slaughter truck. She came in, she was one of the very first dogs in cargo when we figured out the cargo system to get dogs from China into the United States. So she was the ORD about a year and 4 months ago.
Wow. So 2020 is when she came in.
Yeah, she's a pandemic where we couldn't use flight volunteers in that model. So she was one of the first kiddos to come in on cargo.
Oh my God, Tessie, we love you. And Brandy, tell us about your little baby.
Well, this is Finn, and I got Finn back in 2019. He was rescued from a dog meat breeder in Beijing. He had a head injury upon rescue, so it actually affected his sight. He's got very poor vision. He also has a lot of tremors, but sweetest dog I think I've ever had. He loves cuddles, and yeah, he's just probably the one that I call my baby all the time, just because he's always right here.
And we know you have 5 other dogs at home.
I do.
All rescued either locally from shelters or from the China dog meat trade, right?
I have a motley crew of dogs here. Yeah.
So we're in good company. And what brings us here today is a special, I guess, shout out to all Canadians, because as we know, as Jill mentioned, there was a pandemic. That was the first blow to a lot of the rescue groups working in dog meat trade nations. I mean, like Jill mentioned, you couldn't use flight volunteers, no one was traveling. And so it quickly became apparent that you had to use cargo flights. And the problem with that is it's very expensive, right? I think a pallet of dogs is that would contain about 45 medium to small dogs. It costs about $50,000 US or something like that. Pretty pricey, right? Am I in the right ballpark?
Yes, and it can be anywhere from 52, and it's more like 20 big dogs for 52,000. It can be, maybe 30 small dogs. We're always subject to freight prices, gas and fuel prices, and actually the demand of freight moving internationally. So we can all see that. I was just recently in Vancouver. We can kind of see that there are some issues with freighters and ships and moving freight from sea to sea, which subsequently pushes our freight up because the space on the aircrafts internationally are a premium. So we are actually, a lot of adopters ask us, how do we, what is the price? And it really is dependent on globally what's actually happening for us.
So it changes, it's not
subject to moving freight globally as everybody else who moves freight. I know that when I was moving dogs in June, it was $3 a kilo. Now it's over 12, so it's tripled.
Wow, crazy. And so the other blow came when the Center for Disease Control placed a ban on importing canines, only canines. As far as we know, it's not affecting cats, but the majority of survivors from these countries, China in particular, are dogs. But now you started including cats. I was told by Brandy that you're starting to actually have a demand for cats. And so we know cats are also victims of brutal violence in China. They are often slaughtered for food and other circumstances. So the CDC ban places another blow on your operations. And if you wouldn't mind telling viewers at home, some of them may not be aware of the CDC ban. It was put in place on July 14th, right, 2021, and it's for an undetermined amount of time. So we're not sure if it's going to be a year, it could be more. And maybe tell viewers a little bit how this is impacting your rescue work in China and why the ban was put in place, and if there's any progress on lifting the ban or at least revising it. So I'll let you, Jill, speak about this.
Sure. So unbeknownst to any of us, none of us knew, there were 113 countries that were banned from bringing live animals, dogs, into our country because they were alleging that there was a rabies epidemic. We were shocked, including the port that was named, which was JFK. They were also shocked. Land borders and customs officers, CDC officers at the actual ports also had no information. So it was made at a very high level in our government, this decision. The heartbreak was that nobody was asked about it. Nobody weighed in on it. We have since gotten information, which is per the Freedom Act. So the data really does not support what the CDC is saying. There are 74% of the dogs that came in that they're alleging came in on fraudulent documents and or with concern about rabies were actually underage dogs. 74% of these dogs came from Ukraine, Russia, and Colombia. These dogs were actually short-nosed dogs. There's a very high demand for French bulldogs and pugs. They were coming in on the airline of Aeroflot, of which, again, we saw that there was a problem with Egypt and United States banned Egypt. What we have asked the CDC is look at the countries that they're concerned about. The documents weren't actually fraudulent. The dogs were underage. They could not be vaccinated. There's a big difference. The handful of countries that actually had concern were people who were bringing in their private pets that probably didn't understand or know the documents. The animals were vaccinated, held, and then released in customs. I've been on the media quite a bit, Fox, Tucker Carlson, CNN, ABC, and we've been asking the CDC since this started. We're more than willing to do an antibody test, which is a titer test to see if the vaccines are there. We're more than willing to quarantine the animals per their own recommendation for 45 days. We're also willing to booster the animal in our country with rabies. So we are more than willing to work within the parameters to not circumvent any systems. But as of today, the CDC has made no exemptions, no communication, and not just China, but it's absolutely heartbreaking for 113 countries.
I know.
It's the only hope that we have. And fortunately, this brings us to our podcast today, why we're so blessed and honored that you're helping us, that we've had to look into either other countries such as Canada that potentially can help our dogs for either 6 months, one is an option, or two, find loving, caring homes within your country.
Absolutely. And that is something that I recently heard, that it's not like an outright ban in the sense that if a dog is held in Canada for a period of 6 months without any issues, then the US borders will be open to that dog and they can safely fly to the US. So in that sense, we're also appealing to American families that are interested in adopting these dogs, and at the same time try to coordinate with a foster family in Canada for that 6-month period. So it's really an appeal to Canadians and Americans.
Well, and just to interject, we are actually working, I was on a conference call this morning with a team of veterinarians and politicians. We're working very hard. The science, according to them, is that after 45 days, even in Canada, they can come into the United States, although their documents are very misleading. So one document from their own website says 4 months, one document says 45, days. Another
Mm.
one says 6 months. So we're actually formulating this very intelligent argument to justify what's even, so if a dog comes in from a country of high risk and they come into Canada and they're going into the United States and we pull the titer, the actual serum goes to Kansas City, our own lab in the United States.
Yeah.
And that seems to be more than willing. So again, I want to just express to the Canadians that although it technically is 6 months, we in the United States are going to fight this very hard. We just have formulated an aggressive group to really work on this.
Yeah.
You know, we're hoping at least for 45 days. The science that we're willing to do supports this. And this is from their own literature that they're suggesting 45 days.
Well, I did hear talk that there was a bipartisan agreement in Congress to try to revise this bill because the ban is what I'm trying to say, because really it never took public consultation on this. And like you said, 113 countries, many of which have never had a case of rabies. So it's really a blanket ban, and it's really unfair to groups like you who've always done everything by the book. You've never flown a sick dog over, like over to the US. And so we're hoping we'll be successful. I mean, you're certainly lobbying, the CDC and other, politicians to try to enact a revision on this ban. So at least reputable rescue groups should be allowed to fly dogs in and, do so safely. Yeah.
It's not just rescues. It's absolutely heartbreaking. When I was on Tucker Carlson, which was like 6 million views, there are also service animals. I have 10 working dogs right now in Istanbul, titered, quarantined, that the CDC let in. I was heavily involved in Kabul, which was absolutely heartbreaking. There were State Department, embassy workers. These were their own dogs from the United States.
I know.
Yeah. Spent their entire life savings wanting to travel with their small animal globally. They're United States animals vaccinated by our USDA vets, and you won't let. I have a family right now that has a child that has seizures. They use their dog to go back and forth to Saudi Arabia. They cannot take their service animal. It cannot come back.
That's terrible. Yeah.
We I really wanted to express that it's not just the nonprofits or the rescues. I mean, it is a global epidemic that are forcing people to make horrible choices, either leave their animals in countries that are not safe. This is the United States. We have chosen to have our animals go back and forth, and they can't. So it really doesn't just affect the rescue world. And I just wanted to advocate it. It affects every person who has a choice or a desire to bring in an animal or travel with their beloved animal or service animal. Military cannot bring their animal back into our country. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to unmute Brandy. I was getting some feedback. Are you able to unmute yourself, Brandy? Or?
Yes, I am.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. So basically, okay, so what we're going to, some of my questions about the, okay, so as I understand it, so the goal today is obviously to promote in Canada, your group, you're trying to bring these dogs in. We're going to feature some dogs. And by the way, for viewers that are listening right now during the live podcast, please go ahead and post your questions, because we will be taking questions at the end. We're going to go through our conversation. I'm going to share with you some beautiful dogs to inspire you, hopefully. And please do post your questions, because we'll be taking some at the end. So don't be shy. So in terms of, I think I've spoken to Brandy, and she told me that bottom line, you've worked with principally 3 rescuers in China. And I don't know if they're from, I'm assuming they're from different regions of China, China being a very large country. If you could, maybe tell us a little bit more about these rescuers and how you came about to connect with them, and where about in China do they work out of? I think one of them is in Wuhan. I happen to know her pretty well, Fida. And so go ahead and maybe both of you can you know, talk about this, you know. Maybe Brandy, you can start.
Oh yeah, so all three of them are I think I told you this when I was speaking with you. I have kind of like a comical way of describing them. Like the one in Wuhan, she is kind of like the sweet, like Mary Poppinsy kind of personality. I mean, very sweet. Jill and her are very close. You can't know her without wanting to just call her family. She's just really sweet. She rescues a lot of the smaller dogs. She gets her dogs mainly outside of restaurants, dog meat breeders, like illegal dog meat breeders. She'll rescue them from there. And then we have another girl who she's kind of an in-between. She'll do the smaller and medium-sized dogs. And then we have another one, and I always call her, she's like a ninja. She's the one that does all of the, does all the slaughter truck interceptions, and she's just in the thick of it. So they're all very different, but all very important to our rescue and our mission. Jill, obviously I came on later in the game with Jill. Jill knows them all a lot more personally than I do, though. But if you see the difference of sizes and breeds, and as you show today, just by looking, I've learned just by looking at dogs now when they send them in chats, I know whose dog is who just from the size. And
yeah, you can tell, eh?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so we know that one of them, Fita, being in Wuhan, we don't need to name names, obviously, because it's actually kind of risky for them to come forward. Yes. And I understand that. You know, through my own podcast, I've invited, you know, like I really wanted, you know, Chinese rescuers on my podcast to share their experiences. One problem is the language, obviously the language barrier, but the other problem is obviously they don't feel safe speaking out about the work that they do, because China is a country, it's a communist country, and you know, a country with no animal protection laws, and so it's quite risky. You know, obviously activists are often arrested. They're not allowed to speak out. You know, so our freedom of speech that we take for granted here, they don't have. So I understand that. So we don't need to name names, but so there's Wuhan. I think one of them, Jill, I think you started working out of Shanghai. You know, that was your first dog that you brought to the US, golden retriever, beautiful golden retriever. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the Shanghai connection, and are you still working with that rescuer?
So when I originally started, I did rescue a dog north. It was actually a golden retriever, disabled. He couldn't walk, from north of Shanghai with the monks. And we have since, you know, I was very new to understanding kind of everything in China. So I stayed within a little circle, and I was really fortunate. I got introduced to some other rescuers and started to feel more comfortable to branch out. My heart actually goes a little bit more to the rescuer that is by themselves, that doesn't have a lot of support, doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a lot of networking and social media. And so some of these really pull at my heartstrings because they've got 200 to 300 animals. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're by yourself with no funding, it's a tremendous amount undertaking. So what we try to do, or what our organization does, is we do have these core relationships that we've developed, but we're actually still constantly helping, you know, someone who really doesn't have any international support. So I'd like to just say that although we're, you know, really have focused on these parts of China, and depending on the part of China, I think it's more the part of China, you'll see different ways that animals actually are either brutalized or slaughtered or purchased or bought. I would have to say the myth to me is that Shanghai and Beijing, being the capitals and the cities that people usually know, that there's not slaughter trucks or there's not, you know, slaughterhouses. Well, I've actually been in Shanghai and I've seen dogs trucked on an interstate going to a slaughterhouse, and it's done in what I consider like the cover of night, because they don't want actually people to think that this happens in these big cities. Now in cities like Wuhan or Harbin or Shandu or Guangzhou or some other areas, you know, they're just very blatant. You can string up a dog, you can slaughter it, you can do whatever you want to it. So It really is actually heartbreaking. And again, our organization has these relationships that we develop. Um, One of them is really like my family. I mean, you would you would think that we're sisters because we've talked every day for a year and a half. We've probably gone through more hell than any human being and family could go through, because I don't think we could have any more obstacles. But my motto is, no matter how long it takes, Brandy and I spend every single waking moment trying to get these dogs out of China, whether it's into Canada or whether it's into the United States. But our job is to never quit with these animals in China. They have absolutely no hope unless internationals, not just ours, but international rescues come in and help them.
Yes, and that is very true. I mean, at this point, I've done so many interviews. I lost count, but they have not all been published. But that is something that is, it keeps coming up. It's people think the dog meat trade happens in only rural areas, but really happens everywhere, a little bit everywhere. And like you mentioned, Shanghai being a big cosmopolitan city, Beijing being the capital, it still happens there. And there are like dog meat restaurants everywhere, a little bit everywhere in China. That being said, of course, we know at this point that I think everyone agrees that it's a small percentage of the population that regularly consumes dog meat. But if it's not dog meat, these dogs are often slaughtered for their pelts, for fur. There's dog leather. That's a big business. I've heard through PETA's campaigns how horrible it is. And other, can you tell us a bit, Jill, the majority of the dogs that you bring here, are they victims of the meat trade, or is it just all around, some illegal breeders like you mentioned? What other circumstances are they rescued from?
I'm sure that there's some philosophical reasoning behind the communist government and the direct relationship to animal brutality. But one thing that I have never seen is the level of just pure brutality. I can understand if you are starving and you humanely slaughter an animal. We could be criticized in our country for beef and other animals, but to just brutalize an animal by pouring acid or hanging it up or doing something just because, I cannot even wrap my mind around that. And that is the part of China that I don't understand. If actual meat, being cat and dog, was needed, which it's not, it's a myth, it is not needed. There are plenty of other sources of food in China. So the consumption of dog and cat does not need to exist there. It is usually, like you said, what we're seeing is the younger generation is starting to migrate into the old customs of China. What I also have a hard time believing is these insane actual rituals that they believe in, that if you eat a black dog, that you'll become this and that. If you do this to an animal, if you ensue more harm and torture, the meat is more tender. This is absolutely ludicrous. And in modern day, and a country like China that's wealth and educated, it seems absolutely ludicrous. So what we do, our organization, along with other organizations that work in the Asian countries, is we try to educate first and foremost that there are other options. I think one of the very hard things is you don't have spaying and neuter. You can't get Vets Without Borders in there. We can't get actual antibiotics and treatment for the animals. So you see, sadly, these shelters with thousands and thousands of animals. So, it's a vicious cycle. They're trucked. That's inhumane. They live in horrible conditions with thousands of animals. That's inhumane. So really trying to find spay and neuter. I worked with a group of scientists that were in Beijing. They're all Chinese, trying to really educate the population to get spay and neuter clinics in there, to get, distemper and parvo is hugely rapid over there. Pneumonias and all these other contagious diseases that simply shots and antibiotics would help, is to get the communist government to agree to help these animals. I think what's heartbreaking to me is that a lot of these towns and provinces don't allow large dogs, which if they're not over, that's absurd. So if they have a large dog, they're slaughtered just because they're large. If they bark or touch a person, they're slaughtered. The police have a quota in certain cities that they have to kill and slaughter these animals. So it's really educating our, in my humble opinion, it's our world taking a humanitarian stand and saying we need to start educating these countries that there is a better way to handle animal control population.
Yes, and I agree with you and on that front because I think one of the my previous guests was Dr. Peter Jaley, and he was the one to point out that the dog meat trade, as we know it today, is really a modern day invention. It's never. I mean, yeah, at one point, China was obviously very poor. And there were times of famine. I mean, there was a great famine of China. And I think it led to like 30 million deaths. But, this is not what we're talking about today. This is not eating dogs out of survival. Dog meat is actually kind of pricey in some countries. It's more pricey than chicken and more other conventional meats. So people consuming it, they're not poor. It's not out of need. It's not out of necessity, like you mentioned. And for me, the reason why I started the podcast was really about the torture. And like you mentioned, it's the fact that they have no animal protection laws, and it gives people that are just naturally cruel, venting their frustrations, they take it out on animals. And, there's nothing to curb that behavior, because without penalties in place, it's a free reign for all these people that are just, I don't know why they do it. Some people have mentioned that, it's a question that there are human rights issues in China, and some parts of China, they're very poor, they're very frustrated. And so the same way they would beat their wife and children, they take it out on animals. So there's that part. And then there's the other part that you mentioned, that some people have this idea, this mythical belief that the more torture the dog, particularly the dog, because we all know that cows and pigs and chickens are slaughtered in China like they are here in the West, but there's not this element of torture, of deliberate harm. Of course, it's cruel. All of it is cruel, but this deliberate intent to cause harm out of this belief that it will procure the meat some, health virtues of some kind, that is what puzzled me. And I was like, how is it possible that this is still happening? Because like you mentioned, China is the world's second largest economy. And many, I think a lot of people are predicting that within the next decade, they'll become the super economy of the world. So there is no good reason for them not to have instilled some animal protection laws at the very least, and to try to curb this dog meat trade, which is inhumane, it's brutal, it gives rise to crimes. I mean, a lot of people are stealing pets from their homes. And so for all those reasons, this is why we cannot leave these dogs in China. It would not be safe.
Well, the other thing that you have is you have a huge health concern. So these animals are trucked diseased, sick, and the conditions of slaughter are unsanitary. It's just a breeding ground for horrific diseases. I mean, who would consume that? So you're just actually consuming diseased meat, regardless of your belief system. It is so unsanitary. I mean, look at our world. I mean, our world has been paralyzed now for almost 2 years because of what has happened in Wuhan. And again, you look at these slaughterhouses and you look how these animals are caged and housed, and then how much disease they have, and these people are consuming them. In addition to when you go to these restaurants, which is just hideous and barbaric to me, that you can order an animal of size, torture, and anything else and watch that and then consume it.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that there's like live dogs killed to order. You can walk in a restaurant, and one of my previous guests said there was like a little curtain, they pull it back, they say, which dog do you want? how do you want it slaughtered? It's done in the kitchen. I mean, it's just unheard of. It's a bit akin to, lobster. Like the lobsters in the tank, you get to pick which lobster, but this happens. And with dogs, and we all know dogs were never meant to be food. They don't share that history, as opposed to farm animals that have been bred for food for various reasons for thousands of years. Dogs were never bred for that reason. And so, without wanting to say that dogs are more important than other animals, but this is a problem that needs to be tackled first if we want to make progress for other animals. And I know, Brandy, I would like you to speak about this because, Brandy, you're a voice for all animals. And although you've never been to China yourself, I don't believe, but can you speak about this dichotomy? Because a lot of people tell me, well, it's no worse. It's the same thing as, farming animals here in the West. We can't judge them. It's their culture. What would you say to people that give that argument that it's their culture and we should leave them alone?
My argument is basically a statement I always say back to them, is there is a big difference between culture and cruelty. This is not culture. This is just straight up cruelty, and that's all it is. As you know, I am vegan, and that's why I think you directed that at me. I don't agree with any slaughter of any animal, obviously, but there is a huge difference. There is a huge difference. I have not personally witnessed in front of me what happens in China, but we are sent videos. Disturbing videos of things that happen to these dogs in China. And never have I heard of anybody in the States doing this in a factory farm or with cows, pigs, chickens. Again, there's a separate, obviously, level of cruelty that I believe that happens there here in the States with farmed animals. But this is more deliberate. A good example of that would be the pug that we posted a couple weeks ago. That was something that Jill and I were not aware of when we found out the extent of the injuries to his eyes, that they literally put boiling water in this pug's eyes to cook them in the socket. Why? Just a lot of people don't know that these kinds of cruelties are happening over there. So yeah, to somebody that would try to compare what happens to the dogs and cats in the meat trade over there as compared to here, there's a tremendous difference, just because of the fact that I know for a fact that here we don't deliberately, and if somebody did the things that they were doing to the dogs here to any animal, they would get in trouble. There would be consequences to be had. Whereas there are none. And that's why, organizations like us and, we step up and we have to be a voice for them, because these dogs and these cats and these animals, they're screaming over there. Nobody hears. And so that's why we're all here to do this.
Well, that's exactly how I feel about it. And, why I'm so adamant about ending this dog cat meat trade is that I do believe that obviously China will not go vegan. For those viewers that are vegan and aspire to a vegan world, they often tell me, well, why are you so focused on this? You should focus on the animal cruelty that happens in your own country. But I say, dogs and cats are the first category of animals that should be removed from slaughter, because for most of the world, they are companion animals. And for me, it's a winnable thing, I could see it in my lifetime, whereas I don't know that I'll have a vegan world in my lifetime. As much as I would like to think, it's obviously the first thing to be eliminated, and we are making progress. Last year, because of the pandemic, we had I think at least 3 big victories in China. We had the city of Shenzhen, Zhuhai, and then Leishi in September of 2020. They all put a ban on the consumption, and that's important, not just the slaughter, but the sale of dog meat, but the consumption, personal consumption of dogs and cats have been banned in those 3 cities. So that's huge. And also we had the Ministry of Agriculture, declaring dogs as companion animals and not for food. That, has come with some criticism in the sense that it's a statement, it's nice, but we need to back it up with some laws, you know. But until then, how about we focus on the dogs that we want adopted out today, and, you know, fosters, sponsors. We're going to show you some beautiful dogs. I'm going to share my screen. I put together these beautiful dogs in this little presentation of mine. And I'm going to ask Jill and Brandy to comment on them. So hopefully we're all seeing my beautiful PowerPoint presentation that I put together. And I'm just going to start this now. So here we have 3 dogs. So Siwan, Wo Chi, and Hong. And so I see that Siwan is a female, 8 months old. She's a cutie pie. We have Ho Chi, who's a 3-year-old female. Sorry, were you correcting the pronunciation?
No, it sounds good to me.
Okay. And then we have, is this a pug? Is Hong a pug?
You know, I would just call Hong a Chinese rural dog because we really can't be sure.
Yeah, it's a mixed dog, but he's a 2-year-old female. So cute. Very cute.
All 3 of these dogs are, they're all available for adoption. None of them are adopted as of yet. So if anybody in Canada is interested, I would love to speak with you. And foster, we are looking for fosters too, sponsors. Yeah. Sponsor Angel program that we've recently started within the last couple months, to where you can become a monthly sponsor for one of these dogs. Yeah. When you do that, you get a little thank you card from the dogs and our staff, and you get monthly updates on the dog, and all of your, you know, the gift that you're giving each month would go towards the care of the dog that you choose and towards the Freedom Flight. Yeah,
excellent. So here we have Xiao. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Xiong is a cutie. And then and Xiami. Okay, so we can tell right away that Xiatiao was like victim of some kind of abuse. I mean, I think she lost the one of her eyes.
Jai Xiao is how you would say that, and Jai Mi.
Thank you. Thank you for saving me.
No problem. Both of these girls, they've been through the ringer, really. I mean, both of them were rescued off of a slaughter truck. Both of them endured quite a bit in their young little lives. Actually, today, Jaime, she's my sponsor dog of the day on our Facebook page. So if anybody wants to take a look there, she's just a sweetheart, and I fell in love with that face. And I typically always, which is why I say I have a motley crew of dogs, I always fall in love with the underdog.
I know.
It's like, I mean, Zhang Yi, the one in the middle. Oh my gosh, are you just stunning? And
oh
so
my
cute.
God, I'm sorry, but this face is speaking to me.
It's those eyes, yeah. So, so Zhang Yi was rescued from an illegal dog meat breeder. So, like, again, as we said earlier, a lot of these dogs just have a different story of where they came from. But to be honest, they all would have ended up in the same place if they didn't.
Yeah, that's often the case. Any dog that becomes a stray in China can fall victim to, you know, the meat trade or the leather trade or any kind of trade, or just outright being called and killed. Because as we know, China and many parts of China where it's like an urban city, dogs higher, I think in Beijing, it's 35 centimeters, the maximum height of a dog. And Wuhan, I was told it was 45 centimeters. So that eliminates a lot of the larger breeds. So they will obviously be victimized if they're caught in one of those cities. Oh, this one, I gotta say, I'm in love. Fanwe, it's a 10-month-old female, so cute. Can you tell us a little bit more about her?
Oh yeah, she's Fanwe is really so from what I heard from the rescuer, we do get videos and little updates of each dog. So she was kind of a shy dog when she first came to us, but now is getting along really well with the other dogs. And as you can see, one of the rescuers can pick her up, which is honestly like a momentous thing when you have a really scared dog from the meat trade, for sure. But she is not adopted, so she is available for sponsorship, foster, and adoption.
Wonderful. Oh. All right, and now we have Jiangxi. Jiangxi. Okay, it's an 8-month-old female. Is she a slaughterhouse victim or?
Yes, she is.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a face.
She's a sweetheart. I mean, I wouldn't know for sure what her breed is. Just with the little polka dots, I see a little like Australian cattle dog in there, maybe a little bit of lab. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But super sweet. She's like a little baby, the way she likes to be held. She loves attention. She's not adopted. So again, she's available for adoption, sponsor, and foster.
Wonderful. And before people think it's only females, I think we have a few guys with them. So we have Lan and Eric. And yes. Those two are siblings. I mean, I thought the resemblance was pretty startling. So you confirm that these two are brothers?
Yes, they are.
Oh my God, so cute.
And Carrie, she's also just the sweetest thing. All three of these dogs are adopted and have loving families waiting for them. So they would need to be fostered.
Okay.
Also, yeah, and we are welcoming any type of people that would love to monthly sponsor these dogs as well, because the cost of the flights are astronomical for these dogs. So we at China Rescue Dogs honored our original costs, even though the inflation happened. We did honor those with the adoption fees with our adopters. So, they are trying to fundraise for some additional costs to help with the transports, but anybody that would like to donate to a specific dog, that would be much welcome at this point.
Of course. And if just you can mention, I will talk about the cost a bit later, but on average, about like $3,000 a dog.
For the large dogs. For the small dogs, it goes between $1,200 and $1,500.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of these freight carriers are taking advantage of these situations and really hiking up the price. I mean, I don't know if it's justified, the premium that you're paying, but I feel like it's a good opportunity for them to make more money because the demand is high, and it's really hard to fly dogs out of China right now. So very costly.
Yes, it is.
So any donations, monthly donations particularly, are needed because, as I've spoken to many of my guests, it's really hard for them to plan any kind of, operations without knowing where the next donation dollar is coming from. And I'm guilty of that myself. I would give like $100 here and there, but it's best to spread it out. Like, at least if you have a $10 monthly donation, you can count on, you have something to build with, So for everyone out there, if you want to set up a donation, make it monthly. You can also sponsor and apply for fostering. Obviously, all the links to China Rescue Dogs, their website, their social media pages are in the description box below. So make sure you go and reach out to them if you're interested in helping any of these little cuties. Lan, Eric, and Carrie all need you. So now we have August. Oh my God, that face, man.
I know.
She's gonna break. Oh, it's a he. August is a he, another male. And we have Pete, another male.
Pete is actually Lan and Eric's brother too. So that's part of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Pete is Eric's brother?
Yep, Eric and Lan. Yep.
Oh my God, what a cute! And they were saved from what circumstance? Do you know?
They were actually saved outside of a restaurant. So they were literally in a restaurant.
Can you believe people would walk in a restaurant wanting to eat this?
No.
It's hard to imagine. It's definitely hard for us to imagine. And let's not forget Irwan. Irwan is a female. Irwan, a 1-year-old female. What a cutie. So cute. Fluffy.
I know it doesn't fit on the picture, but she's got the cutest underbite. She really does.
They're all amazing. Like I can't think of anyone that doesn't want to adopt August person.
Oh, believe it or not, August has a story. So August was adopted, but then that adoption fell through. And I mean, it took me probably about another 2 months to find someone that would take August. But all I had to do was show this picture.
Oh my God, no kidding.
I showed this picture, that was it. So yeah, he's adorable. All three are adopted. All three are looking for fosters to step forward in Canada. And again, any sponsorship that anybody can manage would be much needed at this point too. Yeah.
Yes, and as we mentioned at the start of the show, it might be a maximum 6 months that you need to foster any of these dogs, and it could very well be brought down to 45 days because that's where the science lies. You know, a dog doesn't need to stay here 6 months. There's no point. After 45 days, there's no chance that this dog could spread rabies or any other, disease. So, so moving along, we have 2020 Sydney and Wolf. And I know you had your hand in this, Brandy. You started, telling the rescuers to start like naming them, English names, because, as has been apparent today, it's hard for us to pronounce the right name.
Yeah.
So 2020, most people can manage, but Sydney and Wolf make it a lot easier.
Yes, absolutely.
So 2020 is a 6-month-old female. What can you tell us about her?
2020 actually just had surgery on her right back leg. She had surgery on her patella, and now she's going to have her second surgery actually within this next week or so. And she's doing really good. She's a youngin'. She's really sweet, very loving. She gets along great with other dogs, cats. She is adopted to a wonderful adopter. Sydney as well. Sydney and Wolf both have adopters, and all are looking for fosters. Again, we're just basically trying to orchestrate some kind of a foster network so we could keep bringing these dogs in and get them home.
Yeah, so Sydney, 2020 Wolf, they all need fosters or sponsors or donations all across the board.
Yeah.
And so Sydney is a female. Actually, I thought it was a male. So Sydney, a female 2-year-old. Wolf is a 3-year-old, very small dog, a male, right? Cute.
Yeah, corgi.
With a name like Wolf, I would assume. All right, so who else is next? So Levy, Angelina, and Nina. All names I can pronounce. Yay! So we have Levy, who's a Samoyed, I believe, a male, 1.5 years old. Wow. Are these dogs all adopted as well? Or?
Yes, they are. Angelina is actually going to the same home as Carrie, who you showed on a couple slides previous. Yeah, and wonderful, wonderful family. That's what makes this so sad. I think, there's so many, sad aspects of not being able to move the dogs when you do what Jill and I do. But I speak with these families quite often, and I know where these dogs are going and how much love they're going to get, and to just that wait time, that they have to wait just to go receive that love in their new home and their new family. I mean, these people will send me in pictures of their beds that they've had their names put in, and the toys they bought and the little outfits they bought for them. And I mean, these dogs are going to experience something they never have before. So we're obviously really excited to get them home, and are in desperate need of all the wonderful Canadians that are watching today to open up their heart and home to foster these dogs. Just because if you do that, you're just getting them one step closer to going home.
Absolutely. And that's it, because a lot of these adopters, they adopted them a while ago, I imagine. And and then the pandemic was one thing, and then the CDC ban just put a nail in the coffin, of so to speak. And so you had to kind of rush and scramble to try to find an alternative, and Canada is really the alternative. So as Canadians, I'm Canadian, I'm here in Montreal. I know a lot of people across the country have come to know this cause of the dog capping trade. And so we're appealing to all of you. Share it with your network, share it with your family, your friends. We need help, and these dogs deserve to have a happy life. They've endured so much. you can imagine at a 1.5 years what they've gone through already, a 2-year-old, 4-year-old. I mean, we have a lot of dogs that are not just babies, they're not just puppies. They've endured so much, and it's time for them to have a happy life,
Yeah.
All right, so now we have dogs without a name, but maybe you know the name, Brandy or Jill. So these are three adorable angels looking for their forever home. If we start with the first one, is that a male or a female? What can you tell us?
Okay, so actually, everybody that you're seeing right here are females.
Okay, we'll get that out of the way.
And that's my mistake. I sent you the pictures without the names on it, so sorry for that. So
no problem.
But I do know. So all three of them have actually already been featured as sponsor dogs. I do know I've done that. All three of these dogs are basically just waiting. They're just waiting for somebody to notice them, to see the potential in them. They're great dogs. All of our we don't adopt out behavior dogs here. We don't adopt out dogs that aren't ready. So when you see a dog on our website, that's because they're ready. We've had them, they've already been evaluated. They've been evaluated with other dogs, cats, people, and we know that they're ready to go. So all these three kiddos are ready for an adopter or foster. If you want to sponsor, that would be amazing too. They're all on our website with names, I promise.
Yes, exactly. So you can go to the China Rescue Dog website and, look for the names, but also you can also send the link to the podcast to Brandy, and she'll be happy to tell you more about them. Yes. So there's obviously all of them need our help. So Canadians, let's step it up. And now we have Davis, Bentley, and I named this one Cutie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Cute. Okay, so Davis is a Samoyed, I imagine, and we're seeing a picture of him. And can you explain this picture, where it was taken?
That picture was actually taken in quarantine before he came to so that's like right after he was rescued.
Oh wow. Okay, and how long do you have to quarantine them?
30 days. 30 days before
they.
Yeah.
And Bentley is a 2-year-old male.
Oh, he's just he's a stud. So that one there, Bentley, he got so many applications. So many people wanted Mr. Bentley because he's good looking. He's just a good looking guy. So he's going, all three of these. Well, actually, I'm sorry. The first two dogs are adopted. The last dog is not, the cutie pie is not adopted. So yeah, I know, with fosters, a lot of people want to foster smaller dogs, or they want to foster Goldens, because that's just two of the most popular dogs that people would like to foster. But you got anybody that would want to foster Davis or Bentley or any of the Sammies, you won't be sorry. These are really good dogs. They really are.
And at this point, they've been rescued for how long?
We've had them for about a year.
Okay, so there you go. Already we know that the dog is healthy. They've been, vetted health-wise. They've had all their vaccines. And also you've had a time for them to acclimate and, to start trusting humans. Some dogs, as I've come to realize, will bounce back very quickly. Some dogs are, socialize very easily. Some others will need more time. But I think today we're sharing dogs that are all ready to be in a family. Their, behavior has been, obviously verified by your rescuers, and so they're able to integrate a family at this point.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, exactly. And so also if people are like, okay, well, you can always quote the last dog as Cutie. I'm sure Brandy will recognize it. If not, you can message me. I'm also available. I'm Jade R on Facebook. Don't be shy. Send me a private message if you're interested, and I'll coordinate with China Rescue Dogs. I'll be happy to do that. All right. And I think that's the end of our little show for today. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing, and we're back. And so I don't know who I would ask. I think I'll just cover some of my questions, because I want to open my home to a dog meat trade survivor. That's one of my greatest wish. Ever since I've heard about the cause, I said I absolutely want one, because I can think of no better gift than to give a loving home to one of these dogs that has known only suffering. But you are the one in charge, Brandy, of coordinating all adoptions. Am I correct with that? So what do you look for typically when you see an application? First of all, okay, maybe I'll start back with the protocol. So for anyone at home that's interested in either being a sponsor, foster, adopter, how do they go about doing it? Do they go on your website? Do they apply directly there? They message you or?
Well, okay, so some people, well, when people want to, they'll see a specific dog on Facebook and they'll, say, hey, how do I foster, adopt, sponsor? I'll usually just give them my email and they'll directly contact me. But you can also go right to our website. There's an adopt tab, there's a donate tab. And on each picture of each dog, there's going to be tabs to where you can adopt or foster, and a drop down will come and you can fill that out for that as well. When I get an adoption application, typically I read it obviously, but that's not that's not the deciding factor. I have to call people and have, at least, I always try to make it like at the, about 30 minutes, but a lot of times you end up staying on the phone for about an hour or so.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
Some people will reach out to us just because they see the dog, but they don't really know what we do or where the dogs come from. And I just see that as an opportunity. That's just an opportunity to educate. And, sometimes when I tell them, because they'll think that the dogs are in Vass because that's where Jill lives and that's where we're registered at.
Yeah.
And then I say, well, actually our dogs are in China. And so you'll get people that are like, oh, well, never mind. And I'll be like, but wait a minute, let me explain to you what it is that we do. And then I tell them all about the dog meat trade. I tell them about their sweet little dog that they fell in love with on the picture, about where they actually came from. And then that actually usually compels people to move forward with the adoption right there. It takes a special a special person to fall in love with a picture or a video of a dog or cat, to where they've never, because a lot of people want that meet and greet. They want to be like, oh, can I come to your shelter and meet that dog and bring my dog? And we can't provide that, obviously. No. But we can provide videos and updates and pictures to that adopter while they wait. And we really do know a lot of the personalities of each dog. I don't require a fenced-in backyard. We don't do that. So, yeah. I mean, yes, all we really require is that the person has a good understanding of where the dog has come from, what it's been through, and that they're committed. I mean, they have to be committed to this can't be their maybe dog. This is their forever dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that, for me personally, the fenced-in yard, that was one of the things I thought about, because I want one of these dogs. And my husband was like, well, we don't have a fenced-in yard. It's probably not a good idea. And also we both work full time. And so that's another part of the equation. So I guess ideally you're looking for a family where there's someone present, at least during the day, especially at the beginning. These dogs cannot be left alone all day or
no. So yeah, at the beginning, it's always nice. Now, when I got my first dog from China, I took at least, I think, 6 weeks off work. So that way I can help get her acclimated, because I was taking a harder case and I knew that I was. But with our dogs, like I said, we don't have behavior dogs, but they are going to be a little bit out of sorts when they first go to your house, because this may be their first go around in a house that they've ever seen. So to be left alone, right when they get home would probably not be the wisest thing. So yeah, I mean, they need their decompression time. I would say probably at least a couple of weeks to where they can get used to their surroundings and feel comfortable within the home. I don't require somebody to be at home at all times. I mean, because, later on, once they're, acclimated and they're comfortable, then you can kind of just come and get, like with me, I have 6 dogs, 3 are from China, and I could go and leave for a couple hours and come back and they're fine. But
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like you said, it's more at the beginning for sure to let the dog acclimate. And, especially for me, it's doable. Like you can take your vacation time, like if you have like 4 weeks vacation time, you could take that all at once. But
Yeah.
it's not like a prerequisite. You're looking for families that do understand though. And what is the protection on your end that this dog will not be, brought back to shelter? Because obviously you went through so much pain and energy and costs and, getting this dog to safety. So how do you ensure that families will not just, abandon the dog?
They're under contract. We have a contract that we wrote up specifically to, and that's one of the guidelines in the contract, that they cannot do that. They can't take the dog. They can't even rehome the dog to somebody and just say, oh, you know what, this wasn't working out, so I gave him to, Joe down the street. They can't do that.
No.
No, the dog would automatically go back in our custody. Either one of us would just go personally pick the dog up, or we would provide a temporary foster immediately for the dog until we can get them adopted to another family.
So obviously you encourage them to let you know if circumstances change for whatever reason, they do, some things are hard to predict.
We've had people, we've had a woman that was just got sick. She was just, she was sick and she just couldn't provide care for her dog anymore. And so we stepped in, and she did the right thing. She called us instead of trying to scramble around and that's the last thing you want, is for a dog that's been through what our dogs have been through to be taken to another shelter and dumped. And that can happen.
Yeah.
Without these contracts in place, that can very well happen. So
and they're all microchipped, are they? Or yes, microchipped. Okay, so there you go. You have it. In terms of cost, though, for fosters, what are they looking at? So they would typically supply the food, I imagine. But in terms of medical care, if any of these dogs require like checkups at the vet, is that kind of covered by China Rescue Dogs?
Yeah, we would cover that aspect of it. The food, like how Jill and I discussed, a lot of the fosters that are stepping forward already have a couple of dogs, a couple of cats. So if they could just provide the food for the dog that they foster, that'd be great. But as far as anything else like medical, if anything comes up that they have to go to the vet, of course you would just send us the bill and we would cover that.
Wonderful. So I don't know, I think we lost Jill permanently. I know we're at the hour mark, so it has been an hour and that is what we scheduled, but I just wanted to go through, I had a couple of questions, and also I want to check if we got any questions and in the live chat box. It doesn't look like I see any questions, but in any event, I did post the podcast early on, and I got a couple of questions. So one of them is from Hank Wood. Hi, Hank. And so he says, my question, the 6 months foster idea in Canada sounds great. Is there any need for a similar scheme in the UK? Because he's from the UK. And so he was wondering if there was any possibility that you could fly dogs from China to the UK to be fostered?
We can. It's just we don't have, again, like how we're starting here kind of from scratch. We're just trying to build that foster network. And we can do the same in the UK. We have talked about that. We're kind of working on the transport logistics of it, and I can keep everybody updated on the website of when that's a possibility. I'm hoping soon.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not an outright no. It's the fact that what you're trying to do is build a network, like as you've done in the States, so you need to start building inroads and connections and and that includes Canadian charities, Canadian shelters that could partner up with you. And, when the dog flies in to I guess they're flying into Vancouver.
Yeah.
Obviously that is the closest airport. And so if a Canadian shelter wants to help you guys, at least with the transport, sometimes the transport to the foster family, because not everyone could make it out, something like that. So you're looking to for partners in rescue in Canada. You're looking for sponsors. Obviously fosters are greatly needed, and yay, I was afraid we'd have to end the podcast without you, Jill, and we cannot do that. You are the founder of China Rescue Dogs, so you're super important. And so I want to mention to you, Jill, part of my questions that I posted about the show beforehand, and I got a couple of questions. One of them was answered by Brandy. The other one comes from Joanna Home. And she says, I would really like to foster a couple of dogs. How do I go about doing this? So Brandy told us you can go on the website, but could they, for example, go on the Facebook page of China Rescue Dogs and message you and say, hey, I'm here, I want to foster, I'm in Canada. You obviously would welcome that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Brandy is the one that actually handles all of our adoptions.
Yeah.
And everything. And I wanted to apologize for me leaving the podcast, but I did want to share why. We are working with a Canadian partnership called Jurassic Park, and we picked up 2 dogs in a high kill shelter in Texas, and we volunteered our time and energy to get them to Seattle. And so we are coordinating the transport for them to finally get into Canada, which is happening in about 3 hours. So we're very proud of that kind of partnership. It's one of our newfound family friends from Canada. And that was like the last call that the transport team is leaving Canada. And it's just wonderful because they're exchanging and helping us foster our dogs while they're in Canada. So I apologize for leaving, but it's actually just a neat relationship, and it kind of ties into this podcast of why our Canadian partnerships are so important. And when they needed help on the US side, Brandy and I said, absolutely, we'll help. We'll keep them in Seattle, and we'll do what we need to do. And now they're getting ready to go to their forever family in Canada.
Oh, wow. The forever family, are they in Vancouver?
They are actually a little north of Vancouver.
Okay.
They're getting ready
Victoria, maybe. Or, oh my God, I have thunderstorms out my window and it's pretty loud. So I'm glad the podcast is still happening. And so I wanted to ask you, Jill, just before we end, because we are over our 1 hour time limit, but I wanted to ask you about Love That Lasts. That is a Canadian charity, as I understand. And how did you connect with them, and how are they helping you?
I can't take credit for that. I have to give credit to Brandy, because Brandy has been amazing with connecting to our Canadian partnerships.
Yeah.
I was just the one that actually went to Canada with like a big sign on me walking around Vancouver, please help us.
Oh yeah, you did? Oh my God, that's awesome.
I got on a plane and met the folks that Brandy kind of connected us to, so they could actually get a face to our rescue and know that, we were who we were. But I actually, Brandy's amazing. I mean, she's just been a godsend to our rescue, and made, I think, 2,000 phone calls, and really connected to Love It Last. And again, Jurassic Park is the Canadian rescue that I was just talking to as well. We have another rescue that's picking up a little one for us. And they're amazing. They're getting 19 dogs from us, and they'll go into loving, wonderful homes. They're also helping us at the airport when our kiddos come in, just because we do have a big support system in the United States, but we're having to really, for most United States rescues, are having to figure out, one, how to kind of navigate ourselves through Canada, and to, really drumming up volunteerism. So it's not just fostering, adopting, but we could sure use some help at the Vancouver airport, when these kids come in, walking, potting, getting to their foster homes, getting to their forever homes. I mean, we have a big support system when transports happen in our country. So we're just trying to actually make sure we have enough help and hands-on when our pups start to arrive from China.
Well, that is exactly what we need. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because if she can't do any of that, sponsor, donate, foster, you can volunteer. And, if I lived in Vancouver, I'd be right there, like any day I'm there at the airport. Sometimes it's just socializing the dog, taking them out for a walk, because these dogs have traveled from far. And, it must be pretty daunting for them to be on an airplane. They've never been on a plane. And I don't know how long it lasts, but it's a long flight, right? So
hour flight. And, so Brandy will tell you, I mean, one of the other things that we ask is if you know somebody, just share on social media, share our
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
Share makes a big, big difference. So again, you might not be able to volunteer, but your neighbor, your person in church, your person in
Exactly.
your community. So just at least share our story, which would be wonderful.
Yes, please do. And Brandy, maybe you'll unmute yourself so we can have.
Paper.
Yeah, exactly. So even, though this was like tagged as Canada, step it up, but also Americans, you have friends in Canada, share it with them. We need all the help in the world. And these dogs, as you saw today, they're all beautiful dogs and they all need our help. So it's our opportunity to do something and to make a difference. So no, contact China Rescue Dogs. Go see the links in the description box below. Visit their website, their social media pages. Don't be shy, reach out. And together we can really make a difference for each one of these dogs. So and cats, I'll mention that we have cats now. So yay. So thank you, Jill, Brandy, you've been amazing. And we'll continue to follow you and check for any updates.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a great time, and I'm happy to say that it's been a success, and we'll keep having you on the show and promoting your work because it deserves to be promoted. So
thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye.